Happy holidays, everyone. Welcome to Setup Wars episode 319. I got a pretty sweet episode prepared for you all, so sit back and relax and let the Setup Wars begin. We are kicking off the episode with some synthwave vibes. First up is Josh, who's a student and graphic designer from Chicago, Illinois, and his gaming and work setup. You know, I'm starting to see a lot of setups with this monitor layout where they have the second display much further away from the primary, and honestly, I'm all for it. If you're going with a T-monitor layout and you have desktop speakers, this is pretty much the most optimal layout to avoid awkward speaker placement. We got a 27-inch 144Hz ViewSonic monitor as a primary and a secondary 27-inch off to the side in vertical mode. For peripherals, he's rocking an RK84 keyboard with a Falcon honeycomb gaming mouse and a really nice mouse pad to tie the synthwave theme together. Aside from the speakers, he does own a headset and a mic that he brings over when he's gaming. And I do like that he took advantage of the extra space from the L desk to store some of his gear instead of crowding the main area. For a bit of sound treating, looks like he covered the entire wall with some acoustic panels and added a digital clock up top for some subtle decor. No complaints with the cable management. Even though the desk does a pretty good job in hiding the cables, Josh spared no expense in actually managing them behind the backboard, so I gotta give him some respect for that. Powering the entire setup is a custom build featuring an i5 11600K and an RTX 3070 Ti Founders Edition with a small cup of boba for some extra FPS. I would eventually grab some cheap cable extensions from Amazon to clean up the build, but overall, a very nice system to complement a very nice setup. Thank you, Josh, for finally coming on the show. Up next is a very stunning white-themed gaming setup that belongs to Matt, who's an engineer manager from Sheffield, UK. Now, the first thing that caught my eyes were the nanoleaf lines on the wall. Such a clean and symmetrical design that really sets a nice precedent for the rest of the setup. What's really impressive about this submission, though, is that the original space for the setup was a storage area that Matt tore down and rebuilt into a viable space for this setup. There was nothing but concrete and bricks at first. He cleaned up the area, added drywall and some paint before he mounted the kitchen countertop and skinned it in white vinyl to stay consistent with the color scheme. What an awesome transformation and excellent use of space this was. Once again, we are seeing the same spaced out monitor layout as before with a secondary 27-inch in vertical mode that's used mostly for Discord, and then we got the 34-inch LG ultrawide as the primary. He did that to make space for both his speakers, and I love that he mounted both the monitors against the wall for a really cool floating look. He kept the surface of the desk very clean by going with wireless Logitech peripherals, but I'm not too big of a fan with the headset stand location. Since it's so close to the edge of the desk, he's got the cable hanging down in front of the drawers. Now, since the desk is mounted on the wall, the Alex units were added to help fill in the space and also provide additional storage. I think positioning the Go XLR in the middle underneath your ultrawide would have been a better choice. You already have a cutout for the cables. All you have to do is run the headphone wire underneath the tabletop and towards the front of the desk, but that will require you to use a headphone hanger underneath the desk instead of a stand. The rest of the cables are managed very well. Then again, the desk was built with that in mind. Lots of grommets were made to pass through the cables, and I love the lighting strips he added behind the small panel on the bottom. I think the lighting on this setup is spectacular, by the way. It's not overdone and it's nicely balanced from top to bottom. And since he's stuck with neutral colors, he can change up the theme anytime he wants. This leads us to his custom all-white gaming PC, packing the Ryzen 9 5900X and an MSI RTX 3080. A very clean build and an awesome gaming setup, no doubt. Thank you, Matt, for sharing this with us. I don't often get that many setup submissions from people who use a massive screen as their primary, but when I do, it's always a treat. This is our setup spotlight of the episode. Scott is an operations manager from the UK who spent 5 days building this setup from scratch for the purpose of just gaming. We got a Carbley countertop sitting on top of 2 Alex units with some capital legs for spacing. However, I'm curious why he went with a green color when there is nothing else in the room that's green. I mean, he literally has a brown drawer in the corner. It definitely clashes with the color scheme. Unless all the other colors were sold out from IKEA, this color choice makes no sense. For the primary display, he's using a 43-inch Aorus gaming monitor and a secondary 15-inch for multitasking that he keeps in the corner. Now for peripherals, he did take the wireless route with the Logitech G915 TKL and a G Pro wireless mouse. If you have $10 laying around, I would highly recommend picking up some isolation pads for your speakers to prevent vibrations and also tilt them slightly towards your ears. You will hear a sound improvement with them. For gaming, he uses the Logitech G533s with the Blue Yeti mic that's hooked up to a boom arm. Personally, I don't think mounting your gear directly on the wall is a good idea. Maybe back in the 90s or the 2000s, but it's a little outdated right now. Plus, it just creates more areas where you have to patch up your wall before you move. I would recommend picking up a nice little pegboard where you can store some of your extra gear instead. Not only will it look nicer and complement your setup at the same time, but there will be only one focused area of drilling into the wall as opposed to using multiple adhesive strips, which will do more damage to your wall after you peel it off. It's much easier to patch up smaller holes than it is to repair drywall scrapes. I've learned this the hard way. Other than that, the cables could use a little more attention. I think a few Velcro straps would fix the cables underneath your desk and a few more to keep the cables behind your PC from flaring up. Surely a high-end system with a Ryzen 9 5900X and an RTX 3090 deserves a little bit of love, right? I love the bling look of the system, but I feel like it doesn't really do it justice in this case because the GPU is facing down. You can't see the crystals on the graphics card because it's not vertically mounted. Also, I would definitely try and replace the bottom 3 fans with more of those crystal fans for consistency, and maybe pick up some cable extensions for the GPU and the EPS cables, since you've pretty much done that for the 24 pin. There's definitely a lot of room for improvement. If you do change anything about the setup, feel free to submit again. Thank you, Scott, for sharing. Shifting back into 6th gear is an absolute unit of a setup, a true battle station down to its core, and just like all masterpieces, it begins with a 3D design. Not just for the desk, but the decorations, the cabinets, the posters, the floor, I mean, everything was modeled, and when you look at the finished product side by side, it's scary how identical it is. So big props to Mike for the 3D model and the attention to detail that went into this project. In fact, this entire setup took 6 months to plan before a single component was purchased, and it took 3 months to complete. But there's a lot to go over, so sit back and buckle up because you're in for a ride. To start off, let's introduce Mike. So he's a contractor from Washington State, and the reason why he built this setup in the first place is so he can have a space dedicated for CAD design, accounting work, general productivity, and of course gaming. So the main reason why Mike stuck with mostly dark neutral colors was because he built the setup in his living room, and that is right across from his kitchen, which has mostly white, black, and gray accents. So he wanted the setup colors to stay consistent with the rest of the house. But if I'm being honest, it feels like there was some editing done to the pictures. It looks like the saturation was toned down quite a bit to achieve this monochromatic look. I mean, isn't that kind of cheating, since you're technically altering the way this setup looks? Color makes such a big difference in a setup. Now, even though there aren't any RGB lighting, I still would have loved to see what the setup looks like naturally with the cold and warm tones. There was a lot of custom work that went into this setup. The desk was handmade by Mike himself, and it consists of 2 acacia butcher blocks that were stained in carbon gray with charcoal accents, and then he cleared it in satin furniture lacquer to achieve this super smooth dark surface. But he also custom made the legs as well. It's built out of steel, which he also painted in matte gunmetal gray to match the aesthetic of the setup. So the main command center area has quad displays that he mounted to the desk. We got 2 27-inch quad HD monitors in vertical mode, sandwiching 2 stacked 34-inch ultrawides with a light bar up top. This monitor layout is what I like to call TIE Fighter on steroids. Below that is rocking an Asus ROG Claymore with a Logitech G502 mouse and a TechSource Black Nexus mousepad, which really complements the theme of the setup. Really nice choice, by the way. If you guys want to grab one yourself or many other awesome designs like it, make sure to visit dealsource.tech/store or just click the link below. My guy is also rocking a pair of Kanouff Tux speakers in black for the primary audio. Another excellent choice, by the way. Those speakers are freaking awesome. Aside from the speakers, he does own an ROG Delta S headset for gaming and comms, but also has the HyperX Cloud Pros for backup just in case. I really love how clean he kept the surface at the desk. There's a lot of gear involved in this setup, but you don't really notice it because he did a really great job organizing everything. There's a dedicated pegboard on the adjacent wall that holds up all the extra controllers and miscellaneous gear that are not being used. But he also has a custom-made drawer right above that where he stores everything else. And did you even notice the Wi-Fi router up here? That's probably the best place to put a router if you ask me. The cable management is immaculate. Everything is nicely grouped up together in the back of the desk and channeled up against the wall into the custom water-cooled PC. The case was slightly modded to fit an eATX motherboard, and the GPU bracket was also custom made out of aluminum to match the legs of the desk. He currently has an i9-12900KF that's overclocked to 5.4 GHz and an ROG Strix 3080. However, he is planning on upgrading to an RTX 4090 once that is available. He did send this submission 6 months ago back in July, so I'm pretty sure he made that upgrade already. I mean, what can I say about this setup? I love everything, to be honest. I love the custom work. I love the small little mods like adding an RGB strip against the backboard, the custom tinting for the nanoleaf panels, and it's even got personality. I know Nick would appreciate the Alien movie posters on the wall. I mean, this setup has everything. You can really tell how much passion and time Mike put into this setup. All the planning, the attention to details, the custom work, I mean, everything is just spectacular. Mike, congrats on taking home the 53rd seal of approval. Phenomenal work, my guy. This setup is the epitome of what a Setup Wars seal of approval should look like, and it should be the new standard moving forward. So toss me an email or hit me up on Discord to claim your plaque and a free TechSource mousepad. Well done. Wrapping up the episode is one of the cleanest triple monitor setups I've seen on the show lately. Robin is an IT specialist trainee from Germany, and this is the setup that he built in the span of 3 years for the purpose of gaming and productivity. We got triple 27-inch 144Hz monitors hooked up beautifully against the wall for that mesmerizing floating look. And then below that, we've got the Sharkoon Skiller keyboard with a G502 mouse. But what's up with the mouse pad? It's so bland. This would have looked better if the setup was all white, but because you have so much color, it just sticks out more than it should. I do like the small grommet you made for the keyboard cable and the cute little Stream Deck though. For audio, it does look like a small portion of the speakers are being blocked off by the monitors, but he does mainly use the Logitech G Pro X headset since he's mostly gaming anyways. The boom arm is tucked away nicely in the back until he needs to use it. That's when he pulls it out from underneath the monitors. Even though cable management is done well, I wouldn't have used cable clips because it just adds more time in removing them when you have to upgrade or swap gear. I feel like 2 or 3 small raceways would have done the job just as good and required a lot less work. I would also spend some time and fix the mess of cables you have behind the monitors. You can always tie the excess cables to the monitor arms using these magnetic cable clips that I featured in last week's Cool Tech video. They come in very handy. Driving the entire system is a really nice NZXT build featuring the Ryzen 9 5900X and an MSI RTX 2070 Super. I think this was like the 3rd system in this episode with a Ryzen 9 5900X. All in all, this was a very well executed, minimalistic triple monitor setup. Thank you for sharing this with us. As always, guys, let me know in the comment section which of these setups was your absolute favorite. Unfortunately, this will be the last Setup Wars for this year. We will continue in January of 2023. I wish you guys a happy holiday and a happy new year. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.